Hi everyone, Daljeet Peterson here from astrolab21.com. And in this video I want to talk about the Scorpio full moon that's happening tonight. Today is April 26, 2021, and at 8:30 p.m. tonight, Pacific Standard Time, make adjustments to the time zone that you live in, but we're going to experience a Scorpio full moon. And you may have read in the news or heard about it's also a supermoon as well as a pink moon. So it seems like there's a lot going on with this full moon this month, and I thought we might do a quick video and sort of unpack some of these concepts around this moon, because it seems like there's a lot to decipher here, and indeed there is. So first of all, let's talk about the fact that it's a supermoon and what that means, right? So during, in the moon's orbit of the Earth, it's not exactly in a circle, right? It's a slightly elliptical orbit, which brings it closer to the Earth at certain points in that orbit than at other times. This happens to be during that time where the moon is just moving just a little closer to Earth. And when that happens during a full moon, it's considered a supermoon. And there is a real perceptible difference. The moon, particularly when it first rises and on the horizon, it just looks massive. And it has a real palpable effect on us, not just psychologically or metaphorically, but really physically. You know, we're learning, and we've always known that the moon has a real physical effect on life on Earth, right? It affects the tides. It affects our psychological state. We can observe heightened activity in emergency rooms around the world on full moons, and in psychiatric wards, and it really, the whole word lunacy or lunatic comes from the word for moon, luna, right? So it can make us a little crazy under a full moon. Certainly the energy is heightened. Of course, it was pretty interesting what we had for last full moon, right? That full moon in Libra, where the rising tides affected by the full moon was actually instrumental in being able to dislodge that giant cargo ship from the Suez Canal that was causing such an incredible disruption to the entire global economy, because of, that boat had gotten stuck and they were trying to dig it out and tow it out, and they really were having a hard time getting that thing to move. And it really was that rising tide during that full moon that was instrumental in them able to get that boat out of there and get the global economy flowing again. So it's always interesting when astrology can be woven into our everyday lives, which it indeed is. We just have to pay attention to it. So we've got the supermoon. We've also got a pink moon. What's going on with that? Now, this dates back, this is a tradition that goes back long time, I think, back to the indigenous tribes of the Americas. The Native American tribes would often give a special name to each of the seasonal moons based on what was happening during that season, right? We have the hunter's moon and the harvest moon and the blood moon. Well, this is the pink moon, and it's named such not because the moon will appear pink in the sky. Don't expect to see that supermoon and see it glowing pink. It's not what the pink moon references. It's actually referring to the wildflowers that are all growing during this time. We're at the peak of spring season. We're in Taurus season, right? So I think there's a particular, like a pink moss that's known to really bloom here out in California in the deserts. A lot of the desert wildflowers are in bloom, and some of them have this really vibrant pink color. So that's where the name pink moon comes from. It's more about what's going on terrestrially on the ground than it is what's going on or reflected in the sky. And of course, next month during the Gemini Sagittarius full moon is the flower moon, so that what's blooming now will continue to flower throughout this spring season. So that's where the name comes from. So I thought we would take a look at the charts, see if we can get some insight on what this supermoon, this pink Scorpio full moon might portend for us today and during this entire week, because there's a lot going on in the astrological weather, so to speak. Some stuff we've been talking about in previous videos on Taurus season 2021. We're talking about the Uranus in Taurus, the Uranus squares Saturn that's going on all year. Lots of these factors that are major transits are going to be really triggered by this particular full moon. So it might be worth us taking a deeper dive. So as always, we're going to pull up the charts, take a look at what's going on. And here I just have the sun and the moon. We know we're talking about we're in Taurus season. The sun is at 7 degrees Taurus. And of course, the moon is coming up at 7 degrees of Scorpio in the opposite sign. And as we always talk about, right, the zodiac and the wheel of the zodiac is a graphical representation of what we consider to be a geocentric system, right, which literally means earth-centered, geocentric, which is what this is trying to show us is if we consider the earth is the middle of the wheel and we are looking out at this 360-degree sky of the zodiac and saying, well, where are all the planets lining up? And, this is representing, if we go here to the solar system and this model of the solar system, which I always love to look at, something that's an interesting phenomenon about our solar system is this phenomenon of the ecliptic, right? If we kind of take this sort of slice perspective, all the planets orbit around the sun in a very tight, almost flat disk of the solar system. And that's what's known as the ecliptic. So that when we look out from Earth, if I zoom in here to Earth, when we see the sun and we see all the planets, they're always going to be a particular part of the sky. They're never too far in the north. They're always in what we call this band of the ecliptic. And so right now, I have this set up for tonight, if we look where the sun is from our perspective on Earth here, what we're looking at is this portion of the sky that is Taurus. And of course, you can see here the moon is in the opposite sign. And this is what a full moon represents, when the Earth is literally between the sun and the moon. So if we look this way, we're looking at Taurus. If we look at this part of the sky where we can see the moon, well, this is Scorpio. And so this is why we get the phenomenon of a full moon, right? That light of the sun bends around the Earth and reflects on the face of the moon that is literally facing us. So tonight, as we look up at the sky here in America, we're going to see that beautiful, gorgeous full moon. And it's actually closer than it normally is to the Earth at this point, which is why it's a supermoon. So that's what's being represented here, right? On our chart is just that fact that the Earth is in between the sun and the moon. Of course, we can also see from this model how when we're looking at this portion of the sky that we consider to be Taurus, we also would see that Mercury and Venus are in Taurus, as well as way out here Uranus, right? And so that's what we do when we, chart these things onto our zodiac wheel. We could add Mercury and Venus as well as Uranus and see they are all in the sign of Taurus from our perspective here on Earth. We look where the sun is at and all these planets are there, and then on the other side of the Earth we have the moon. So this is really the configuration that is giving us this powerful full moon, this Scorpio full moon, this supermoon, this pink moon is being reinforced and enhanced by the fact that it's not just the sun in Taurus, but Uranus in Taurus, Venus in Taurus in her own sign, which is adding this real sensual beauty, romantic quality to this lunation. Our desire to relate, to be in relationship, to spend time in intimate connection with our partners, with our lovers, with our best friends, with the things we love, with the people we love, and the places we love. All those themes are being highlighted by, as we talked about in the Taurus season 2021 video, right? This clump of energy, this constellation of planets all together in the sign of Taurus. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this full moon in Scorpio is that it's following the most recent new moon, which was in Aries. And this happens, is much different than what we had last year, where the new moon in Aries was followed by a full moon in Libra, right? The opposite sign. Because the new moon now in this time of year is occurring in the later degrees of the signs, the following full moon is happening in the next sign, right? So this is an interesting thing that occurs on a regular basis. So it adds a degree of complexity to the lunation cycles when this phenomenon occurs, where we have the seed of the new moon planted in one sign, and then by the time the full moon happens 2 weeks later, the sun has moved into the adjacent sign. So that Aries new moon, now the sun is in Taurus in the next sign, and the full moon is happening in the opposite sign of Taurus, Scorpio, rather than last year, that full moon that followed the Aries new moon happened in Libra, right? Which is a more natural expression of the lunation cycle, where the seed is planted in the sign of the sun, and then that moon culminates to fullness in that opposite sign from the sun. That was so Aries and Libra. Now we have an Aries full moon initiated, and now it's culminating in Scorpio rather than Libra. And so when this happens, there's an interesting tension. It requires us to bring a little more conscious effort to fulfilling the promise of what was begun under that Aries new moon. And Aries new moon is always a real powerful one, right? It's the first first new moon of the new year, spring, right? It happens after, right around the time of spring. So it has a real energetic quality to it. But now with it culminating in Scorpio, it's a little different. It's a little bit more of a tension because it's expressing a different elemental dynamic. That fiery new moon now has to resolve in the watery full moon of Scorpio. And fire and water don't jibe as well as fire and air do. So forcing us to integrate this full moon in a different, more conscious way, make a little more effort. And of course, the moon in Scorpio is the sign of the fall of the moon. So the moon doesn't really dig being in Scorpio all that much. It would much rather be in the opposite sign of Taurus, where it's exalted, which makes a lot of sense, right? In that feminine Venus-ruled sign, the moon is super expressive. Over here in the sign of Scorpio ruled by Pluto, which is a little darker, it doesn't get to express that sort of warm maternal embrace that we associate with the moon. It's forcing it to go into the more hidden, darker, unconscious places, the taboo areas, the secrets, the hidden, and explore and expose some of those hidden parts of ourselves, which is why it can be a challenging full moon. I think it is one of the themes of this full moon that we want to be aware of. That, what's being highlighted here is when we talk about the Taurus-Scorpio axis, I consider this to be the axis of value, right? Because Taurus is all about our values, our possessions, our resources on a personal level. And Scorpio represents other people's resources and values and assets. It's how we relate to other people and value them, right? It's also why Scorpio in the 8th house is often associated with inheritance, with investments, with other people's wealth, right? Because this is the axis of value. So that's certainly being highlighted with this full moon. And with all of this heavy Taurus energy, with this planetary stellium going on in Taurus, that part of the equation is really getting highlighted for us. We're really getting called to reflect full moon on what we value in others and how that reflects our own personal values, on the money of others and on our own financial resources. And of course, as I've been talking about quite a bit, I think this is going to be a very volatile year in the economy and the financial markets because we have the most volatile planet, Uranus, in the sign of values, in the sign of money and resources, Taurus. So this full moon is highlighting that, right? And if you consider that quality of the hidden, of the secret, and the moon wanting to shine a light on that, could be something about that tension between the public and the private, what's hidden in the value system, in the economy, in the financial system. Something may indeed be brought to light during this lunation and during this entire week, because as the sun moves into that exact conjunction with Uranus and Taurus later in the week, I think that's going to be something very significant, something something in the news, in the media, in the world, in the financial system may well come to light, right? The sun shining its light on that factor. And this full moon, this super moon in Scorpio, may have something to reveal. Something hidden being revealed is certainly one of the ways we can interpret this symbolism. And of course, that plays all the way down to the personal level, right? What if something hidden about a partner's resources? Maybe they've been keeping a secret from you, or hiding money or something of that nature. Or, you're getting access to someone else's resources. Someone is offering you some sort of financial help or an investment opportunity that's going to come your way, particularly if you have planets in Taurus or Scorpio or in any really the fixed signs. Also, the Aquarius and Leo may be affected by this lunation more powerfully than others, particularly around that 7-degree part of the zodiac. So just be aware of that. And again, this fact that it's an out of phase type of full moon with that fire versus water element and the intent and need to integrate more consciously, be a little more sensitive, be a little more aware. Of course, we've been talking a lot about the Saturn square to Uranus, another one of these meta themes for the entire year of 2021. They'll be in square aspect for most of the year. So this is also getting highlighted with all of this Taurus energy coming in and these other planets coming to join Uranus in this part of the sky. This part of the equation is getting heavily emphasized. This Taurus value, resources, money. These are just issues that are coming up for all of us. We're all thinking about what is of value, and it's playing out in our culture, right? All of the, Congress right now is in heated debate over the stimulus checks and the Biden plan for reinvestment in infrastructure. We're talking about $2.2 trillion package. It's quite appropriate that this conversation is taking place under this astrological signature. So something surprising, something sudden, I expect, with Uranus. But something also very secretive playing out during this period. One other thing I do want to highlight before I go is we also have Mars, which just recently moved into the sign of Cancer, right? And this is another interesting relationship because Cancer is considered to be the sign of the fall of Mars. Mars just doesn't particularly enjoy that 6-week period as it moves through Cancer, right? Because Cancer has a water sign, more yin essence, doesn't really bode well with Mars's aggressive and initiative energy. It feels sort of restricted in a way, right? It's almost like it's moving underwater, right? That Mars energy. So you may feel a bit of that. Of course, it's in a nice trine with the Scorpio full moon, right? So we get this water trine. So a little bit more energy for the emotional side of this new moon, right? You may have an ability to go deeper emotionally, particularly in your relationships. But also just be aware this also can be a signature of like almost a passive-aggressive tendency where you have the aggression of Mars and that passive reflective sign of Cancer being highlighted by this Scorpio full moon. There's a lot of potential for some manipulative, very uncomfortable emotional energy to be stirred up by this configuration. So just wanted to highlight that, be aware of it, and look out for it in yourself. Obviously, if you can nip that in the bud before it shows up. But in your relationships, in the workplace, and family dynamics, just be a little more forgiving and understanding and patient. Not really a strong Mars quality, but certainly if it can be more patient and be more, we think of all the things that Cancer represents, right? That maternal, that protection, that nurturing sense. Some energy for nurturing ourselves and our relationships. A lot of relationship energy with this configuration. So, all right, well, I don't want to go on too much. I think that's just what I wanted to highlight with this Scorpio full moon. this pink moon, this super moon. So it should be a pretty powerful night and around a very powerful week. I expect a lot of sudden impulsive energy to be radiating through all of us during this week. And I'm going to hopefully do another video about that Sun conjunct Uranus later in the week, because I think that's something that is worth exploring deeper. Okay, well, that's all for now. Hopefully that's been helpful and insightful for you guys. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, I would appreciate the like and the subscribe, and hit that notification bell as well, so you'll always know when I'm putting out new content on the channel. All right, until then, we'll see you next time. Sat Nam, everyone.